They told her it was impossible. They told her no woman would ever wear the trident. But destiny had other plans. Army Staff Sergeant Laura Foster had applied to Navy SEAL training 3 times. 3 times the answer came back the same. A cold, printed letter. Female candidates do not meet the physical requirements for SEAL operations. Every rejection cut deep, not because Laura doubted herself, but because the system refused to believe her. She was fast. She was strong. She had survived 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. She had perfect fitness scores. She was one of the best shooters in the entire Army. And yet, the doors to the SEALs stayed locked. The instructors at Naval Special, Warfare Command had made it clear no woman will ever wear the trident. Laura swallowed the pain and kept moving forward. Because soldiers learn one truth. Your moment to prove yourself always comes when you least expect it. It was an ordinary morning at Fort Bragg, the Army's Special Operations Training Base. Laura was leading a group of Rangers through basic rifle drills. The air was calm, the sound of gunfire controlled and routine. Then, the alarm screamed across the entire installation. Sirens, shouts, and then the unmistakable sound of automatic gunfire. Fort Bragg had just transformed from training ground into battlefield. Armed insurgents had slipped inside the base, disguised as civilian contractors. They carried maps of the compound. They knew guard schedules. They knew where to strike. Their mission was simple and terrifying. Kill as many American Special Operations soldiers as possible. Break morale. Send a message to NATO that America's best were not untouchable. Within minutes, 12 soldiers were dead. Another 18 wounded. Chaos spread like wildfire. Laura's instincts took over. She secured her trainees. She grabbed her gear, and she ran toward the sound of gunfire. Her radio crackled. "Foster, report to the range tower immediately. We need every marksman we can get." The range tower was high ground, perfect for snipers. Laura sprinted there, heart pounding, rifle clutch tight. At the top, she found Sergeant Major Thompson and Colonel Davis, faces grim as they stared at tactical screens. "Foster, we're out of snipers," Thompson said, his voice heavy. "Every one of them is deployed, wounded, or pinned down. You're all we've got." Laura froze for just a second. Her mind flashed back to the rejection letters. The words, "Women don't have what it takes," and now, in the middle of a terrorist assault, the same men who denied her training were putting a Barrett .50 caliber rifle in her hands. "Show us what you can do," Thompson said. Laura studied the screen. 15 enemy fighters, all armed with military-grade weapons, all moving with deadly precision through the base. Some were targeting the command bunker. Inside were NATO officials, leaders whose deaths would rock the world. Colonel Davis gave her the parameters. 15 shots, 15 targets, ranges from 600 to 1,200 meters. You've got 90 seconds per engagement. It was madness. It was near impossible. But Laura only nodded, because this was the chance she had been waiting for her entire career. She checked the Barrett rifle. Heavy, powerful, deadly accurate, if in the right hands. Laura had fired it before in Afghanistan, but never under pressure like this. Her fingers moved. Automatically. Scope aligned, bipod steady, ammo checked, her breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied. Target 1, administrative building rooftop, 847 meters. She adjusted for wind, calculated the angle, held her breath. One smooth squeeze of the trigger. Boom! The bullet cut the air. 1.2 seconds later, the insurgent dropped. A perfect kill. Target 1 neutralized, she whispered into her radio, and just like that, the hunted became the hunter. 1 shot was down, but 14 more enemies were still moving inside Fort Bragg, and every second counted. Laura shifted her scope. Her second target was harder, a man hiding in a second-story window of the logistics building. Distance, 1,127 meters. That was over a kilometer away. Through the glass, she could see the glint of his weapon. He was covering the helicopter landing zone, where medics were desperately trying to evacuate the wounded. If she missed, she could hit her own people. No mistakes allowed. Laura exhaled. She calculated the wind, adjusted elevation, waited. The insurgent leaned into the window, crosshairs on his chest. Boom! 1.3 seconds later, he was gone. 2 down. 13 to go. Word spread fast across the radios. Someone was fighting back. Soldiers who had been pinned down started to hope again. Every shot she fired was more than a bullet. It was a message. You are not alone. Target 3, a runner. 1,230 meters out, moving across open ground with a crosswind of 12 miles per hour. Laura tracked him carefully. Lead the target. Predict his next step. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck mid-stride. The man fell instantly. Target 4, 956 meters. The insurgent was crouched behind partial cover. She had only a 3-second window. She waited. The man leaned out to fire. Boom! Neutralized. Target 5. This was insane. 1,187 meters. Almost the maximum range of the Barrett. Light was fading. The air was shifting. Laura steadied herself. She did the math. One last breath, and fired. The bullet flew for nearly 2 seconds, and still, perfect. Hit. Colonel Davis's voice came through the radio. Foster, you're doing impossible work out there. Keep going. But Laura didn't celebrate. No time. She adjusted, refocused, moved on. Her world had shrunk down to crosshairs, calculations, and controlled breathing. Her mind was steel, her body calm as still water. Target after target dropped. By the time she reached number 8, the battlefield had shifted. The terrorists were no longer hunters. They were prey. They realized someone was watching them, killing them one by one with ghost-like precision. Fear spread among them. They began hiding in darker corners, basements, and behind steel barriers. They tried to outthink her, but Laura was already 2 steps ahead. Target 9 was brutal. A basement window in the supply building. Range 1,089 meters. The shot had to pass through a gap just 12 inches wide. It was the kind of shot most snipers wouldn't even attempt. One wrong angle, and she would hit the wall. Laura adjusted, calculated the steep downward trajectory. She waited. The insurgent stepped into the narrow slit of light. Boom! Perfect. 9 down, 6 remaining, she reported. By now, soldiers, trapped around the base, were cheering into their radios. Every shot Laura made meant another American life saved. Morale shifted. Courage spread. And still, she kept working. Focused. Precise. The final 6 enemies had grouped together. They covered each other, overlapping fields of fire, making it nearly impossible to pick them off one by one. If she took too long, they'd escape. If she rushed, she'd miss. It was a nightmare scenario. But Laura Foster was ready. 9 enemies were gone. 6 still remained. But these last 6 were the deadliest of all. They had learned the truth. Someone was hunting them. And now they moved like cornered wolves, tightly packed, covering each other. Daring Laura to try from the tower, she studied them through her scope. They were clever. Every move they made minimized their exposure. Every angle gave them mutual protection. If she fired at one, the others could shift, return fire, or vanish. She had to strike in rapid sequence, faster than they could react. Target 10, range 1,156 meters. The man was half hidden behind concrete. Wind had shifted again. Subtle, but dangerous. One wrong calculation, and the bullet would drift. Laura adjusted her scope, corrected for the breeze, waited until his shoulder slid into view. Boom, a clean hit. Target 11, even harder. 1,034. meters. The insurgent dashed from one cover to another. A 3-second sprint. That was her window. She tracked his path, anticipated his exact step, and fired. The man dropped mid-stride. Target 12. This one moved differently. Calm, tactical. The way he hugged cover. The way he shifted. He wasn't just an insurgent. He had military training, and he was far. 298 meters, almost the edge of her rifle's limit. Laura exhaled. Her finger tightened slowly. The Barrett thundered. The target fell. Colonel Davis's voice filled her headset. 3 targets remaining. Outstanding work, Foster, but Laura didn't smile. She couldn't, because the last 3 enemies weren't hiding anymore. They were running. Through her scope, she watched them break cover and sprint east. Their mission had failed. Now, they just wanted to escape. But escape meant they could regroup. Attack again. Kill again. Laura couldn't allow it. Target 13. 1,145 meters. The man was running at full speed, 8 miles an hour across open ground. Laura had to lead him. Aim not where he was, but where he would be when the bullet arrived. She calculated the timing. 1.5 seconds into the future. Boom. Direct. Hit target 14, 1,287 meters. Even farther. This man used cover as he ran, ducking behind debris, weaving, hiding. Laura tracked him patiently. She waited for the moment. A flash of movement. A single second of exposure. Boom. Down. And then there was one. Target 15, 1,356 meters. The farthest shot yet. Deteriorating light. A moving target. This was beyond difficult. This was the kind of shot snipers whispered about, but almost never achieved. Laura steadied herself. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm she had practiced for years. She adjusted for wind, accounted for atmospheric pressure, calculated the downward angle, predicted the target's movement. Every variable mattered. Every second counted. She inhaled deeply, exhaled halfway. Held her breath. Her finger squeezed the trigger. The Barrett roared. The bullet flew for 1.44 seconds and struck the target dead on. Silence. Then, cheers erupted across the base. Radios crackled with joy. Soldiers shouted her name. All targets. Neutralized, Laura reported calmly. Threat eliminated. In less than an hour, she had done what many thought was impossible. 15 shots. 15 kills, no misses, no collateral damage. She had saved lives, she had saved Fort Bragg, and she had destroyed a belief the military had held for decades, that women could never perform at the highest level. Minutes later, Colonel Davis and Sergeant Major Thompson climbed the tower. They looked at Laura not with doubt, but with awe. "Foster," Davis said, his voice heavy with respect. "What you just accomplished will be studied for decades." The battle was over, but Laura's story was just beginning. When the last enemy fell, the base sank into silence. The guns stopped firing. The radios went quiet. And in that stillness, soldiers realized they were alive because of one woman. Hundreds of lives saved, from just one rifle, from just one sniper. Colonel Davis removed his headset. His eyes were still locked on the tower, on the young woman standing tall, her rifle across her chest. He whispered to himself, "History has been rewritten today." Back at the tower, Laura finally lowered her weapon. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what she had just done. 15 enemies, 15 perfect shots, no mistakes, no hesitation. She sat for a moment, staring at the horizon. The sunset painted the sky blood red, as if it knew what had happened. Soon, soldiers gathered below the tower. They weren't cheering wildly now. Instead, they looked up with quiet respect, like people standing in a church, because what they had just witnessed wasn't just skill. It was discipline, it was courage, it was sacrifice. That night in the command tent, Colonel Davis addressed his men. "We will remember this day," he began, "because it proves something the world has long refused to believe." He turned to Laura. "A soldier's worth is not measured by gender, but by grit, precision, and heart." The men nodded. Even those who had once doubted her lowered their heads in respect. News of the mission spread quickly. Within days, the Pentagon knew her name. Generals studied the footage. Analysts reviewed every shot. 15 confirmed kills, all clean, all flawless. It was not just rare. It was legendary. But Laura didn't crave fame. She didn't crave medals. She only cared about one thing, that her brothers in uniform made it home alive. Still, recognition came. She was awarded the Bronze Star for valor. Her name entered the sniper school curriculum. Young recruits whispered her story in barracks, the woman who changed everything. Yet the truth is, Laura Foster was never after glory. She carried the weight of every trigger pull. Every life taken, even of the enemy, rested on her soul. At night she would sit alone, polishing her rifle, whispering the same prayer. May this weapon only ever save lives. Years later, her mission would be told in books, taught in classrooms, and studied by special forces worldwide. But for those who were there, the soldiers who stood at Fort Bragg that day, it wasn't just a military operation, it was a miracle, because they had seen what no one thought possible. A young woman, doubted by her own comrades, stood between death and survival, and she chose survival. Imagine this. A quiet night at Fort Bragg, a flag rippling in the wind, a lone tower standing tall, and somewhere inside, a young sniper polishing her rifle, ready for the next call. Because Laura Foster had proven one timeless truth. Heroes are not born. They are made. One bullet, one breath, one choice at a time.